Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. This episode is episode 250, and it's once again brought to you by our friends at Galactic Comics and Collectibles at galacticcomicsandcollectibles.com. We are deep in horror week here on the Capes and Tights podcast, but for episode 250, I decided to invite two good friends to the podcast, Matt Morris and Anna Dupre, to the podcast to chat horror books, horror community, horror Instagram, and so much more. Anna Dupre has about little over 5,000 followers on Instagram, and Matt Morris has over 6,000 followers on Instagram. Those two people are voices in the horror community on Instagram. Matt runs a couple of book clubs on there as well. Anna has her own podcast as well as contributes autographs, articles, and reviews to Capes and Tights as well. So we decided this is a great opportunity to get together, chat about horror, the community, the books, and so much more. But before you listen, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, all those places, as well as rate, review, subscribe over on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. And as always, you can check out capesandtights.com. Welcome to episode 250 of the Capes and Tights podcast right here for Horror Week. Enjoy, everyone. Welcome to the 250th episode. Anna and Matt, how are you guys today?
I am doing great, and I'm thrilled that I'm here for this milestone. I think it's like so cool that we get 250. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing wonderful. My Patriots won today, and this is my first time ever on a podcast, so I'm super thankful for you having me on, Justin.
I love how Matt waited, Anna, till we
Yeah,
got
I know,
on
to
the
rub the
recording to
salt.
say that to
Yeah.
you right after you started saying about your Saints. So that's pretty good. It's your first podcast episode, Matt, but like that's
Yeah.
perfect. That was absolute
No.
waiting to actually be recording to say that was actually perfect.
Yeah, coming in hot to rub salt in the wound. Way to go, Matt. Wow.
Yeah, that's perfect. I love that stuff. That's so great. But no, we're here to talk horror, which again, I mentioned before we started recording to Anna that it could be horror, talking about sports if you wanted to. I mean, I haven't seen it yet. There's a sports horror film that just came out, right? Him. I haven't actually got the chance to see it yet, but I thought that was kind of a cool spin. And that's one of the things I want to get into on this podcast is how big the genre is, how much it kind of like can weave off into different spots and the tentacles of the horror genre go into so many different directions. But before we get too far into this, Matt, why don't we start off with just people who will tune in because of you, Matt, because you're sharing on social media or anything like that, will know who you are. But like, what got you into why horror? Why, it's to steal a line from Becky Spratford in the Why I Love Horror, but like, why horror? Why is that the thing that you focus on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, this is going to sound cliche, but it started with Stephen King. Obviously, being from Maine, he's always been a presence, somebody I've always been aware of. But when I was in high school, I picked up Night Shift, and I'd always been into reading as a kid. I was never really one of those like Goosebumps or any of the kind of YA and middle grade horror. So my introduction was Stephen King through Night Shift, and it really just caused me to become obsessed. I started reading almost everything I could from Stephen King, and then yeah, and then the Bookstagram thing happened and really expanded my horror horizons. But I'm sure we can talk about that at some
Yeah,
point.
we will. And so I guess the question I also have for both of you, we will continue on and ask you that question in here a second, Anna, too. But like, is it to you guys, and I talk to you guys mostly about books because that's what you guys focus on and Anna writing for the website and contributing as well. It's mostly reviews and things like that. Is it beyond books though? Are you a fan of horror films too, Matt, or is it just mainly books?
Yeah, definitely. Books more so, but definitely with the movies. I'm more of a kind of older, like 70s and 80s horror movie person, but I love a lot of the newer stuff. I'm a big slasher fan. I really love some of the more modern stuff. Like I just watched The Monkey last night finally and had a lot of fun with that. I love when a horror comedy is done really well. But I just really love that kind of dread-inducing movies. So like Halloween, The Thing,
Mhm.
Alien, those are kind of my favorite horror movies.
That's awesome. And so, Anna, you have a story of how you became into horror?
Uh, I mean, kind of. I'm kind of a mess. So so we'll just start there. So like nobody in my family is, horror people. So this all started with me. I think it was like really because I wanted to be kind of a rebel. To like Matt's point, like I did read my fair share of Goosebumps. I had like my favorite Goosebumps book was like Werewolf of Fever Swamp. Me and my best friend read that book multiple times, like made up games and shit about it. Like it was like very, very cool and fun when I was younger. But when I got to be older, I went to private Catholic school, which was not the best time in my life. And we got to where we had to like write this English paper and we got to pick, it was like a research project on the author. Then you got to pick the book that you were going to do like the literary analysis on. And I was like, man, I'm really gonna show these people. I'm gonna do something dark. And I was like, I'm gonna read The Shining. And I was surprised that I got approval for it. So much like Matt, it kind of was Stephen King. But it didn't take right then and there. Like it took a few years. Like I in and out during college, I would read different things. I mean, like I've always liked darker things, but my fascination was more rooted in like logic with like crime, mystery thriller, that kind of thing. Like I wasn't super open to the other because I felt like I was like too stupid to get it like in the deep way that a lot of people get horror. And then it kind of just got to a point where I think it was like 2022. Somebody was on social media was posting about Rachel Harrison's Such Sharp Teeth. I picked it up and read it, fell in love. I was like, oh, this is what we're doing with horror right now. Like this is the spot that we're in. And then from there, I just kind of kept going. And ironically enough, I like really got into a big horror movie phase my senior year of college, which was like 2019. And I was living alone. And I was like, this is the time that I'm really gonna lean in. I think it was like to just, I don't know, maybe it was like a defense mechanism. I wish I could tell you what was wrong with me that I did that. But I like literally watched horror like all the time. And when I lived alone, and then like much to like Matt's point, like I watch like a lot of horror now. Like I try and keep up with the movies that's coming out, like when they're
Mhm.
coming out and stuff like that. But it's like almost to my detriment. Like I'm a fan of like horror podcasts right now where I've listened to like all of Radio Rental. I listen to like Rattled and Shook. Those are both Tenderfoot podcasts, but it's like supposed like real life scary stories. And then there was a Netflix series that dropped, I think this weekend, called like True Haunting or something like that. And it's like real life scary stories with like reenactment. So it's kind of like the true crime ID, dramatizations that are happening. And it's like, I watched like 3 parts of this and I scared the shit out of myself on Friday night. And then like I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning because of course the smoke alarm
Yeah.
battery was dying. And I was like, why did I do this to myself? And then I couldn't fall asleep and I watched 2 more parts. So I guess to say, I don't know what's wrong with me. Me and
I
horror just have a love affair that I can't explain, and I just keep coming back for more, even though it scares the bejesus out of me.
It's funny how you say that too, because like I feel like horror books and horror movies are I keep telling myself they're fake. Like, okay, these are not real. These are not real stories. These are fake. So you're cool. You can read these things. I mean, I was talking about my bookshelves before we started recording, and I have a section with my Goosebumps books on it. And since my last house, before I moved here, my son, who's 4 now, just he sees the stack of books that look very similar, and so he's always like, "Can I help you put your Goosebumps books away?" Because inevitably, as a collector, as a book collector, as a collector in general, I move things and reorganize things a lot, and so he's seen me move them, shelf to shelf to shelf, and and I had to keep on telling him these are Halloween costumes on the cover here. This is a guy wearing a Halloween costume that looks like a werewolf, because not to scare the bejesus at him. And I keep on telling him. And then tonight he's sitting on the couch and I'm doing the dishes, and he goes, Dad, I'm scared. I'm like, what? He goes, behind their couch is our front porch. And he's like, something out there. I go, there's nothing out there. He's like laughing at me, whatever. And he did it to me 3 times. And then finally he did this to me a 4th time. He goes, there's someone out there. I go, dude, there's nothing. Oh, wait, there is someone out there. And there was someone at the front door trying to sell us popcorn from the Boy Scouts. But it was just kind of funny. I was like, dude, there's nothing out there. Stop it. And then he's like, wait, there actually is someone out there right now. So you had a right to be scared there. But yeah, I've always told myself, these are not real, Anna. This is a fake thing. And you're over here going true crime, horror
Yeah.
style stuff over here, trying to really scare yourself of things that actually did happen in life. This is not,
Oh yeah.
this is not healthy. I guess this is a time
No.
we have an intervention right now. Is this what we're
Yeah,
doing?
this is actually what this is. Perfect. You can title this episode "The Intervention of Anna Dupre," and we'll see how that goes.
See how it goes on there. But yeah, I mean it's a fun thing to explain to people.
It is. And
I
I,
think
I
that's
think it's weird though, because like my parents will be like, I don't understand why you're so into this. Like, why do you like to be freaked out? But I'm like, it makes you think about things in a very different way though. And that's what I really, really
mhm.
appreciate. Like more so with the fiction than the real life stuff. But then like I am always fascinated by like what's the deeper thread running through this, even with the, like the true stuff
Yeah.
and like what's going on in these people's lives that's like really making this like so terrifying,
Hmm.
There's so many components to all this stuff. And I think just thinking about it deeper is just like a really cool like intellectual exercise. And it's so ironic because people are like, horror's just blood and guts and naked women running
Yeah,
around. And
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, no, 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 no. Like you gotta read deeper into it. I promise there's substance there, I swear. So
I mean, horror movies do have that check boxes of things like,
yeah.
one of them has to have a topless woman in it. Like that's just part of the rules of regulations of this world we live in. But it's because it's kind of funny. We watched on this podcast, my friend Paul Eaton, who owns Galactic Comics and Collectibles, comes and reviews obscure like random Marvel or superhero movies or other random movies that we've watched over the years. And we watched the Man Thing, which was a horror movie put out by Marvel based on the Man Thing character. I want to say it was 2004, 2014, somewhere between there. And it's a horror movie and Marvel, it's a Marvel movie, and it's like 10 minutes into the movie, they're like in a swamp and a girl's just taking her top off. And it was like Marvel got the idea. They're like, we're making a horror movie. This is actually gonna be R-rated. We're gonna make horror. So what do we have to do in this? We have to have scary monster. Oh, someone has to take their top off. And they checked all those boxes off. And I was like, oh my God, you don't need to do that. There's like it fits in certain places. I understand part of it, the vulnerability of it. Like when are you most vulnerable in your life is when you're not clothed. But still, it's a funny thing that you actually have to see that most horror movies do have naked people.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's the cool thing that you get to think about too is like when does I think it makes us think too about like in real life when it's acceptable and when it's
Mhm.
not to kind of be like navel gazing. Like
Yeah.
at what point do we draw the line and like when is this serving us and when is it not?
Mhm.
Because there's ways to do that where it's not gratuitous and it does serve the plot and you're like, wow, but then there are the ways that, sometimes it's like, why are they doing that? And I think that helps. I think it honestly helps us be better people in the real world whenever we can sit and look at it in the fictional world. So
Well, I mean, you guys both. I mean, you talked about obviously Instagram, and you're posting these reviews and you're doing these things on social media. And one of the stuff is that one of the things I like about sharing these reviews and reading these things and getting these advanced copies of getting these books out before they go out is their connection to the real world. In the sense that, like you mentioned, Anna, that you talk about like real true hauntings, they're based on true stories. But like a lot of the books we read, and you mentioned it was excuse me. Oh, no, my alarm's going off. Perfect. Perfect. Right, right. We talk about podcasting times. No, but like the things that are connected to real world things. So it's fictionalized parts, but like they have a true theme to them. I just read Saratoga Schaefer's Trad Wife last week or week before that, and it's based on trad wife lifestyle on Instagram and social media, and that's a thread. It's not based on a true story that's based around a trad wife, but it's about the idea of this social media, influencing being a trad wife and a traditional wife. And so each of them have this in it, but when you're finished reading the book, you're like, that's fake. Like it's still not real. So that still gets me to say I can do this. I can continue reading my books. I can continue watching my movies, go to bed sleeping okay, and know that it's a fake thing. But yeah, it's a world we live in. But yeah, so social media I was talking about before I got into that little tangent. You both are on social media. You both have pretty good following. I will say Matt has more followers than you on Instagram, Anna, just so you know.
he does. Oh, I'm very aware. First the Patriots, now this, really?
But no, it's this thing. And so, do you, I guess both of you, and Matt, you can start off if you want with answering this question too. Do you feel that you have pressure being on Instagram and having to read specific things or be a specific way? Like if you wanted to read randomly or like, I want to read an Emily Henry book. Do you feel like you don't read that because you have a following that would not care about that, meaning that you need to have to kind of like fit yourself into a specific spot on your Instagram, or do you just read what you want and share what you read?
Great question. Um,
I mean, do you want to read
so
an Emily
when
Henry book, or is that was that the good question part? Or
And if so, which one? You have
great,
to say which one.
I
great,
mean, I
I,
just
I,
read a Nicholas Sparks book, so there's that too. So
I could not name an Emily Henry book if you asked me to. Sorry, any
I have one
Emily
over there
Henry
somewhere.
fans. Um,
Sure.
yeah, that's a great question. So I try, obviously, it's hard to parse out like what I'm picking out because I'm so influenced by what I read, by
Hmm.
what my friends are reading on Bookstagram and like what other accounts are. Um, So I've discovered so many amazing authors since I've joined Bookstagram, both traditional and indie, and it's hard to say, but for the most part, I read what I want,
Mhm.
and I will post a review about it if I want to. It just happens to be that I read mostly horror, but I do kind of wish that I could step back and read like a little bit of like some like crime thrillers and stuff like that. Obviously, there's like S.A. Cosby, who he plays up really well with the horror crowd. I almost consider him horror adjacent, just because his books are so gritty and violent and um, yeah, that's a great question, Justin. Um,
I,
yeah, I try.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I come from, I started the Capes and Tights podcast, the Capes and Tights website, stuff like that, with the idea of comics. It was mainly just comics, or comic book related things and movies. And then it kind of evolved from there and so on and so forth. So at the very beginning of transitioning from just comics alone to doing comics, books, movies, TV, all this stuff was what I owed the people who were following me, because they followed me because of the comics. So am I going to lose people because I started to drift into prose novels and things like that? Am I going to lose people because I'm doing horror, a lot of horror stuff, or whatever? And then I thought
yeah.
to myself, it's mine. I do what I want. If I
Hmm.
lose people, I'm hopefully going to gain people, because I have a mixture and a variety of things on there. So I did have that from the beginning. Yes, if I were to post something, or any of us were to post anything about Emily Henry, no offense again, Emily sells a lot of books. There's a lot of readers for Emily. This is not shade at Emily. My wife reads Emily Henry books. That's why I have some on the shelf over there. I just can't see them. It's too dark over there. But if I wrote a review about one of those books, people would question me. The only reason I read a Nicholas Sparks book is because it was written with him and M. Night Shyamalan, and so that's why that book came even into my purview, was the fact that it was a odd combination of a romance novelist and a horror or some sort of unique thriller
Yeah.
movie maker, and so that's why it came into my purview in general. But no, I just feel like that, is there do you owe anybody anything, or are you just there to do it and the followers come? It's what it is. It's what it is. It is what it is. Anna, do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part. And I want to give Matt a compliment too, because Matt is really good at like building community. Because he does like, so Matt will host like read-alongs or like
Hmm.
forum group chats based on books. Like we're all reading at the same time. So like that's how I got to be friends with Matt, was like just because of the same books that we were reading at the same time. And since we're like, obviously whenever like arcs come out and we follow on a similar schedule of reading and stuff, that becomes more easier sometimes than not. But I think that Matt, you do a really good job of building community. I just wanted to give you your flowers for that before we get
Well,
too
thank you.
Yeah.
in the trenches of the social media stuff. But to the point about like pressure and like what we're reading and whatever, I started the Bookstagram page before I did review, like before I did anything else. That was what was
Hmm.
first, and so I was reading like whatever the hell I wanted. Like I think I was like reading like The Secret History by Donna Tartt and like the Red Rising series, and then like I fell more into horror, and then like that's where it went. And then I started reviewing, and then like the one thing that I do, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but I feel very aware of like what I'm doing is that whenever we pick up a book that's not out yet, and this is like a small soapbox about like publishing,
Yes.
but I
Yes.
know a lot of publishers ask us to not review or not share like a lot of press about a book
Hmm.
until
Hmm.
release day. And I've just found that that's been a little counterintuitive
Hmm.
to like to actually supporting the authors and the work that we like really, really appreciate, right?
Hmm.
Like the whole entire reason that I started reviewing was one, like I found Rachel Harrison's books and it was like a life-changing moment for me. So I was like, if I can help somebody else find a book that means as much to them as these books mean to me, then I'm gonna do it. So then I started reviewing. And so then it became like really paramount to me that I get out there and I get my voice heard, so that happens for the readers. But then I started thinking about it on the flip side as well. Once I kind of had like a little bit of success with that, is that the authors could use help too, like
Hmm.
getting their stuff visible and like getting out there. And like you always hear like pre-orders are like the biggest metric that determines their success, and then like you don't want anybody talking about it. For so again, that's like my small tangent on publishing, but like that's the only point of like pressure that I feel now with choosing what I read. So like the way that I've kind of chosen to think about it, because I do review when I can, like when I have the time to sit down and write a review, which feels few and far between these days. But I started doing the podcast where like I interview authors and having conversations about their books because I felt like that was a better way to reach people these days. Like I would love to say that my reviews are doing the really hard cutting work, but I'm going to be honest, I know I ramble and I write really long ones and not everybody's there to sit down and to read all of that. I get it. So let's put it in their ears because a lot of people are accessible that way.
Mhm.
So I started doing the podcast. And so for me, I was like, okay, in order for me to feel like I'm spending my time wisely and doing what I feel like I should do, given that I have the ability to do it, I'm gonna spend like 7 months out the year arc reading, 7, 8 months out the year arc reading and doing the podcast. And then whatever falls what may within like the other 2 or 3 is what it is. So like right now I'm scheduled out till December. I'm like, if I can throw in some fun episodes, that'll be great. But like, I have 2 more books to read for the podcast, and then after that, like, I still haven't read Interview with a Vampire. I need to read that. Like, I want to go read that now. Like, that's what I'm in the mood to go read. I still haven't read like The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I
Me
want to
either.
go read that.
I'll say that.
So
Oh, you guys
there's
need
like,
to.
I know
yeah,
it's one of those things I'm trying to like. I was trying to like, how many of these can I fit in October? Oh, it's
yeah.
that's the month to do it in, and I'm like, oh, let's do it, and I'm like, oh, I can't, I don't have time.
It's literally it's the worst. Like, there's not enough hours in the day. But
Yeah,
so I guess to say like I'm never trying to do it to gain followers or
yeah,
anything like that. If that happens, that's great. If I'm reaching people, that's great. But I do know that if I'm going to do this and like make it worth my time, I'm going to do my very best to like get what I'm trying to get out there. And, and I know that for the people who have books coming out, getting podcasts out on pub day are really important, or talking about it and promoting and doing the reviewing beforehand is really important. And that's going to inform my reading for, like I said, 7, 8 months out of the year. And so like, I'm willing to do that. And it's books that I want to read. Don't get me wrong. Are there times that I'll like go to pick up and read like, this isn't even like a real thing that's happened to me lately, but just for instance, like a possession novel, and I'm looking
yeah.
to read like a ghost story instead. Sure, like there's stuff like that all the time, but I think that I have a lot of care for the authors in the genre that at this point, like I don't want to say that those facts don't matter because they obviously do, but I'm just there for a good story. Like
Mhm.
that's the bottom line. So whatever form that comes, that's what comes.
I'm glad you made that soapbox argument of arcs and reviews and when they get published, because it doesn't happen. It's depending on the publisher sometimes. I realize that more recently, Flatiron, and I'm just call them out for a second, has said to me, "Can you wait until a specific date?" And
Yeah.
I read Future Boy, which is Michael J. Fox's new book about being in the Back to the Future series and all that stuff. And I read that book 3 months ago. And in the return back email back to me saying, "Hey, can you wait till publication date to publish your review?" I was like, "Cool. I'll read it. I'll review it. I'll schedule it. It'll be out there on 10/14, which this episode comes out after that. So as we're recording, it comes out on Tuesday. But and I even emailed Christopher over at Flatiron, and I was like, "Is there any way I could post it today?" Which was Friday, and he's like, "No, can you wait till actual publication date?" To me, I'm always like, I don't know. I just feel like if I can get one more person to go to the store and pre-order this book, last week sometime, that's one more sale that I feel like you can get, and I feel like on the day the publication comes out, aren't we all gonna be just noise.
Yeah.
There's so many out there on the day that the publication comes out. If you can have it be like, "Hey, can you wait to do yours a week before?" And someone else is, "Oh, 2 weeks before." And I just feel like if you have them coming out sporadically, it is not noise. But if everything comes out on one day, especially if smaller people like ourselves, our review might get so pushed down because of the fact that the New York Times has featured it, or so on and so forth. And so I've always thought that was weird because I also work, like I said, I work with comic book publishers, which is a horrible industry for promoting books because of the fact that they don't know half the time. Like I usually get my review copy to review a comic book on Friday, and the comic book comes out on Wednesday. And so you're
Yeah.
talking like I get it on Friday. So like even not even like, "Hey, can you have your review done by then?" Like you can't even like read the comic ahead of time to try to prepare for this. Like I literally get it, have to read it, comprehend it, maybe read it again, and then write a review by before Tuesday, so that hopefully people can get out there. But the pre-ordering is 6 weeks ahead of time. So you're
Yeah.
pre-ordering 6 weeks. They don't even have the review copies out to people until 3 days before the actual book comes out. So on the comic book side, they wish they could get it out earlier. And it seems like on the book publication side, it seems like they can get it out earlier, but they want you to wait. It's a weird. I don't know why it's like that. But we listen, right? We want these arcs, so you listen and
Yeah.
you publish it when they want you to publish it.
Well,
Yeah.
and I will say this, like because I've thought about the flip side. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
what is going on that would deter
Yeah.
this from happening? And I know that social media is a lawless land, as I'm sure
Yes.
Matt, you can attest to. So I get, we're all and this is like where I kind of like try and back off a little bit on the soapbox, but we're just the public. We're
Yes.
just an email address
Yes.
to these
Yes.
publishers and these publicists who we're talking to.
Yeah.
So I understand like they don't know me. They don't know like that I feel socially responsible about these things. Like they don't know, for all they know, I can go and be like, this was trash,
Hmm.
2 months out and I'm taking sales, and I've seen that happen before with like, not regulated publicity. So I know it can happen, but I do think that I just wish that there was almost like an outreach team or like an intermediate like some in between the publishing business wheelhouse, the actual networking and social media side, and then like us who are doing the
Hmm.
helping with all this stuff. Because I do think that if you build relationships with people and you get to know them, then you would be more willing to let stuff go, a little bit earlier.
Hmm.
And I've talked to authors about it too because they don't really understand it either. They're like, they keep urging us for pre-orders and like how can I do that whenever, we're, I hear that they didn't even know that we were told, hey, don't
Yes.
push this
Yeah.
out until
Hmm.
day of. They're like, what? That's crazy. But I also get the flip side. If you're letting just anybody say anything, then that's also a little scary
And you
too.
can't filter it. You can't be like, send me your
Exactly.
review, and if they like it, then it goes to public because then it seems like they're only sharing the positive
Exactly.
reviews. But I do think, and this is a question just for both of you too, is because we do get, as someone like myself writing capes and tights, and you two on Bookstagram and doing reviews and podcast stuff, is we get not inundated, but we get the cold emails too. Like I get every day I get an email saying, "Hey, because you like this one, you might like this one." And sometimes I'm like, "How the hell did you connect the two of those things together?" Like sometimes I'm like, "This is a young adult novel about a girl going to school and doing all this stuff." And you said that because I read King Sorrow by Joe Hill. I'm like, whatever. Okay, that's cool. I get it. But and every once in a while, I do get these emails. I'm like, God damn it, I want to read that book. That looks so good. I want that. And sometimes I get the email being like, you're not paying attention because I already read it and reviewed it. So like, what's. But like you mentioned, we're just a kind of an email address or a name on that. But the the I only read what I want to read, if that makes any sense. And that's probably like you mentioned off the top too by talking about Instagram or reviewing in pressure or responsibility is that I always feel like my review is likely going to be positive for the most
Yeah.
part. Like, I would say that if you have an advanced copy of a book, it's probably going to be somewhere between 3.5 stars or higher. And not because of that's just my rating system, but if I choose to read a book by an author that I know, unless it's an absolute pile of garbage, it's likely going to be a positive review because I wouldn't take the precious time that I have to read a book that I am skeptical about. And you do need to read those because I do really you need to have the positives and negatives in there. But most of my negative reviews are books that came out 3 or 4 or 5, 6 years ago, something that's already been on the market, and I read it because I need to read it, or I feel like I'm obligated to read it because of something else, or the sequel's coming out, so I might as well read the original book. But the most part, I feel bad because I'm always looking at my ratings. I'm like, I have a pretty high rating system. But then I'm like, but I choose to read the books that I want to read. Like these are good books.
Yeah.
Like what?
Mhm.
Like why would I have it any other way? So I can see where you're coming from, man. On the high, like making sure that not everybody can say anything. But then the truth of the matter is, if you as a person, not a huge corporation like New York Times,
Yeah.
choose to read a book, you're likely going to like it because you're not going to take if it's so risky, you're going to pick the next arc, in my opinion. And that's I could be speaking out of turn there, but like the most likely all the list of books you have to read, the one that you've heard hype about, Matt saying other people on the internet have talked about it, is the one that you choose. In all likelihood, it's going to be positive. Like not that I'm saying that we're saying we're only positive reviewers, but I'm just saying
Oh
like
yeah.
because you have to choose what you're reading. If I'm reading a Stephen King book because I want to read through his back catalog, it's probably going to be mostly positive because I'm going to read the books like The Shining and I'm going to read the books like The Stand, and I really shouldn't have negative things to say about those books.
Well, I think
But
like
otherwise, yeah,
you can be critical. You
yes,
can definitely be critical of things, but I think that part of like the social responsibility that I was
mm,
talking about was like I don't and you know me,
yeah,
whenever I send you my reviews to post,
yeah,
it's never below like 4 stars. But I think it's part of curating your reading list and
yeah,
paying attention to what you enjoy. That's one part of it. But also like I never and I think Matt, I think like we've talked about it before, like just in other times, like we don't ever want to generate a place of negativity. Like
Yeah.
if it's not for you, it's not for you.
Mhm.
That's fine. Like there are so many freaking books out there. So many, and there is something for everyone.
Yeah.
So all I can say with what anything I do is I'm talking about the things that worked right for me.
Hmm.
And if you
Hmm.
align with me on my page and what I talk about and what I think, then odds are you're going to like that thing. And additionally, what I try to do, even if it's not my, favorite thing, like there have been books that I've read that I didn't absolutely love that I've interviewed authors on. But I know that that's a book for somebody and I know how to
Hmm.
market that book for those people. So just being responsible to say it's not objectively bad or whatever, it's just not for me. Like that's fine. And if you don't want to spend the time on it, then that's great too. But I
Yeah.
think that it's just about I think it's just like having an approach that's, appropriate for the masses and not
Hmm.
being harmful. Like and just having respect for the art, man. Like these people spend so much time on these books. Like I am not somebody who has written a book to it's finished, but like I paint and I draw and I all I
Yeah.
can think is like if I spent all this time on this piece and before it ever even gets to like see the
Yeah.
light of day, people are
Yeah.
shitting on it, I would
Yeah.
lose it. Like I would lose it.
Well,
So
I have a problem with the 1 star reviews of debut authors sometimes. Like,
oh yeah.
it's not that you shouldn't give it. Like, it's not like, oh man, if the book is really bad, that bad, I understand where you're coming from on this. But like, also, this person's just starting, and right off the bat, an advanced reviewer is giving someone a 1 star review of a book that's, like I said, not just independently released or something like that. Someone that's on an actual like, top 5 publisher or something like that. I've always just been like, you're just kicking them before they even get started. And I just feel like to me, it's like, I don't know, it's just in bad taste. I'd almost rather not review the book,
Yeah.
like not even give it a star, not even think, just maybe mark it on Goodreads as read and just
Yeah.
move on than give someone that bad a review that early in their career. Cause I'm just like, it's just the beginning. They're just getting started. The earlier books for some people, I've read a lot of people's earlier books, people who are really good writers now, and they're not the greatest. And so part of me is, like I said, we have a social responsibility as well as I guess, I don't know. I just, that before it even hits the masses and you're sitting there crapping on a book. It's just hard. I understand. And I'm a person who does creative stuff. I do beer labels, right, during the day for a brewery. And I get frustrated or stressed or whatever when the people in my office, the 4 people I need to show the label to, don't like it. That I know that are my friends. Like, I can't imagine what it's like being an author and having a critical review 2 months before a book comes out, and from people you don't know. So I can see where
Mhm.
the people are coming from on that for sure. But yeah, it's a crazy thing, and it's like I said, you have somewhat of a responsibility being an advanced reviewer, to do not the I said the right thing, to
Well,
be
I think, but
honest,
yeah,
but
to be honest and to be discerning, but like
yeah,
I think as well, you do carry some power if you're like, this is bad, and
yeah,
this is the first thing from that person. You don't, and like my favorite thing is like you don't have to have an opinion on it. Like you can just be like,
it's,
didn't work for me right now. Maybe it's like it's not the
Yep.
day or the month or the year for me with this. You
yeah.
don't have to have an opinion. So that's always like my favorite thing is like there is a third option C. I just don't know right now, and that's okay.
Still a favorite. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, that movie sucked. That book sucked. I don't like slashers. Well, it's a slasher book, so I don't know what to tell you on that. Like, that's not the problem with the book. It's not a problem with the writer. It's not a problem with the writing. It's literally your opinion on what you don't like for a genre, subgenre of this. But yeah, Matt, you were
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah, I think it's just important to be constructive. Yeah, like Anna said, writing a book is hard, and they're artists who put all of these hours, weeks, months of their lives into this. And I'm not just if I don't quite click with something, I'm not just gonna come on, oh, this sucks. Like I wish I had never read this. Um, I think it's totally okay to say why you don't like something. I
yeah,
think that you should. I think if you're going to post something constructive or negative about a book, you have to say why. You
mhm,
need to articulate. And so, like when I review on Bookstagram, I don't use star ratings. Like I
mhm,
will put star ratings on NetGalley and on Goodreads just because that's the nature of the
mhm,
beast on there, and I've kind of always done it. But I prefer to have my words read, like why I thought something was good or
mhm,
something was maybe didn't quite work for me, or like these are the things I loved about it and these are the things I didn't quite love about it, but if you love these things then you may like it. I kind of follow the Sadie Hartman rule of like you're trying to find like take a book and find its readers. Like there's a reader for pretty much every book out there.
Mhm.
Um, and just trying to match that together.
There is so I was just looking quickly on one of my it's in Goodreads negative reviews that I've done. I'm not going to name the book. People can find that out themselves. But my biggest takeaway was the fact there was too many people. And as a person who has some disadvantages in the world of keeping track of things and being very all scatterbrained, that sometimes too many people ruin it. Doesn't mean the book was bad, doesn't mean the writing was bad, doesn't mean the subject was bad, but just the choice of the author to include six people in there instead of two people in there made the book not unreadable, but just harder to read for me. And so there's that by explaining that to people that's the reason why I didn't like this book. That's a personal
Hmm.
opinion on this. And what that would do is other people who have a very same mindset as myself would then go, okay, maybe this is a book not for me. It looks like a good book, but maybe I'll just skip it because of that. Not because the book was bad. Some people are like, I don't have a problem with that. Then they go to read it and they love it. It is what it is. But I think that's one of those things you mentioned about like just being constructive and being positive, not, I've seen it on the book, people's books, like screw this book, don't read this book, and that's all they wrote. I'm like, well, why? Like that doesn't really help me at all. Now, well, what that does is make me want to read it more. And now I want to understand why you're like this, why this person was so blunt about this and didn't actually go into detail. But yeah, it's it's community, and that's what we talked about. I think that's the big thing. I think it's the takeaway from this week is horror week on the podcast and talking books with you two is there's a community here that I honestly don't think. And again, I sit in this community because I love horror and I talk to a bunch of horror people and I read horror books. I'm part of a horror book club that we meets every month. Is this community seems different than any other book community, and there is same people that put this book club on. It's Gibran's book club, Briar Patch Books in Bangor, Maine. They put a book club
Mm.
on for horror, but they also have a romance book club. And I've even heard some of the people are in both, which they just like to read and they pick both book clubs up. But even the romance book club, there's like it's a community, but it's not nearly the same. I feel like the horror community has each other's backs. And I just feel like that's what I read online and talk to people when I went to Spooktastic and saw you, Matt. It was a lot of this, just like, oh, hey, how's it going? So on and so forth. I just don't see the same. And like I'm not deeply entrenched in all the other communities that are out there in the book world, but I just feel so different. And I can't always put a finger on why, but I know that this horror community is always there. I feel like whether it's recommending books or welcoming a child into the world or buying a new home or whatever, it's all these people care about each other in this community. I mean, do you guys agree with that? And can you pinpoint something more than I'm mentioning here? Like, I just don't, I just can't always put my fingers on it.
Matt, I'll let you take
Yeah.
a stab at that first.
Oh boy. As far as pinpointing the reason why, well, that's definitely a thing though. Like you were saying at Spooktastic,
Yeah.
the first like over hour I was there, it was just constant, like, hey, I know you from online, like I've never met you before, or hey, I saw you last year at
Yeah.
like it's especially in New England, we're pretty close. So you see a lot of the same people at events, but even just online, the sort of camaraderie. There's so many different pockets, like the Talking Scared Discord, for example, is a really great community. Bookstagram, like doing all the book clubs and stuff. I think it's just having that shared, like, horror is kind of one of those things. Like, yes, there's some mainstream, it's gotten into the mainstream a lot, but it's still like one of those kind of like fringe things. Like,
Mhm.
the average person on the streets, like, ugh, horror. You know what I mean? Like we're kind of like the weirdos off to the side. And
That's
so when you find a fellow person like horror lover, it just immediately like you have something in common. Like sometimes it's so hard, especially where everyone's so divided right now, to find something that brings everyone together. And
mhm.
that love of horror is just one of the strongest things. Like if I find out you're a horror fan, I'm not going to stop talking to you about it, probably annoyingly so, but
But I mean, as you mentioned, it's mostly positive. There is obviously this negativity. We talk about social media here. You're talking about Bookstagram. You're talking about having, 5,000 plus followers on that platform. it's a negative place. Like, you know, what I mean, we've always talked about this, how negative social media can be. But like, I feel like, in the comic book industry, like the comic book industries, again, yeah, we're a bunch of nerds. We're the outcasts. People don't really want to talk to us and things like that. They're very, you know, oh, you read funny books, like, oh, that's weird. But there's a lot of negativity still in the industry. Like, there's still like this weird negativity in comic book fandom that I still haven't felt, and maybe I'm just oblivious to it because I'm having such a fun time and I'm along for the ride. But I just don't see it in the horror community. It's a lot of building up. It's a lot of promoting each other's books from authors, from author to author. It's a lot of people promote. Oh, I've read that book. You should read that book, kind of stuff. And I don't know. You know, and do you see that too? Or I'm guessing you. I mean, there is negativity. I'll tell you that much right now. I had someone message me because I hated a Stephen King book, and they were like, "How dare you?" And all that stuff. And so, like, I felt like, well, if that's the negativity I'm gonna get, I'll take it. But like, you know, other than that, I don't know.
That's
What about
just
you,
your
Anna?
that's your
Yeah.
rite of passage. Somebody has to yell at you about a Stephen King book at some point in
I'm
this.
like, he's got like 50 plus novels out there. Like, I don't like them all. Like, you can't.
Yeah.
It's not possible to like them all. But yes.
No, no, I mean I agree. I think
Yeah.
so there's two parts of this. I think one, the horror community on the whole does feel very positive for a lot of reasons.
Mhm.
I do think that there is some work and some ways to go about how we talk about some things and treat each other on some things, but that's a whole different,
Yes.
debacle.
Yeah.
But I think on the whole, and this is like my grand psychological take on all this. Horror is like you have to like face down the thing, right? Like
Mhm.
not a lot. I'm not gonna say no. There's not a lot of like fluff. There's not a lot of like,
Yes.
oh, we'll skirt around this and we'll come back to it, or oh, like it. A lot of horror is dealing with our trauma. A lot of it's personal, or it starts
Hmm.
off that way. For a lot of I think authors and then like readers too is like, oh my God, I had this like personal reaction to this book, and then this is why, and it's like one big like trauma bonding. Is sometimes it feels like, but even more so, I just think that there has to be a level of like honesty whenever you're reading and talking about horror, because you have to be honest about what frightens you and what makes you vulnerable, and those are like the two big no-nos, right? And like human nature, that we're like, we don't talk about those things,
Yes.
but here we are, the freaks of nature, who are like, yeah, let's talk about it and figure out why. And like I agree with Matt, like to what he said about feeling like you automatically have like that instant connection whenever you find somebody else who does like horror, because as somebody, like, I live in Louisiana. Like I said, my family's not really into horror. I don't have many like in-person friends here who are into horror.
Hmm.
And it can feel, at times it can feel incredibly isolating, because it's like, what do I, like what do we do? And then, but like, luckily I have made so many friends, like Matt being one of them, online. And then like whenever I do go to like, and like Matt, you didn't make it to Stoker this year, but like if I were to go to Spectacular, I know I could walk up to you, Matt, and be like, give you the biggest hug, and we would talk, and it would be fine. We'd go grab lunch if we needed, like, whatever. And I had that experience at Stoker. Like met so many people that I knew online, and they were all like super welcoming, super like supportive. If you need anything, you let me know. Um, is there still things that need work? Absolutely. There are certain ways that I wish that we were, like my feminist soapbox, that I wish that we talk about
Yes.
women's horror, and like
Yeah.
that it was just horror to begin with, like all that kind of stuff. The way that we're treating some of the, things with indie publishing compared to trad publishing, like all of those things that we, are huge topics that I don't even want to start to get into, because I just don't want to, I want to be able to do them justice. Yeah, those are there. But
Yeah.
on the whole, I think there is a lot of good in the horror community, but I think it's because we're having to be raw and vulnerable with one another. I don't think that
Hmm.
there's any getting around it, unfortunately, with horror.
You're right. I mean, it's true. I mean, you have to be. It takes a special person. And I've lived that my entire life, basically. And every big genre or big pop culture thing that I've been into, and maybe that's because I ask for it more. Like, I've been the outsider of things. Like, I listen to a lot of heavy music, and so people are all like, "How can you deal with the screaming?" Da, 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 da. I understand. I've listened to it my entire life. I like it. I just listened to it when the Boy Scout people came to the front door. They were probably scared, and that's how it is. My son like headbangs in the back seat. It's great. I'm into comic books again. An outsider thing, and it's become more mainstream, just like horror has recently because of big budget films and things like that, and the popularity of things. But then horror, so it's harder for me because it's great. I have this big collection of books that are 90% horror, and I'm like, who wants to borrow a book? And everybody's like, oh, that.
Yeah,
And I'm just like,
same.
it's like, and so it's asking, it's like, so obviously I put this on myself because it's what I've been into, but maybe I like being the the outsider. You know, maybe I like being this person that's part of this like niche. Again, it's not niche because it's obviously a massive industry and a massive genre. But like it's fun, and I think that's probably what it is, and I'm probably not the only one. And so because of that, I can come together with like-minded people and say, like, when you go to a spooktastic, for an example, they're getting a lot of hype on this. It happens in September in Massachusetts. Is We're all the same people. You're white, you're black, you're female, male, straight, gay. It doesn't matter. I mean, you go to this place, it's like we love horror, and I think that's what's huge about it. I think that, like, you know, you mentioned Anna. Yes, there is some space and some place to work in this, but for the overall large scheme of things, when you go there, you can give Matt a hug, you can hang out, we can talk, and we can just nerd out over talking about horror stuff, books, things like that, and it's just awesome. And that included the vendors that were outside selling horror themed trinkets and things and random stuff outside. It was really cool. I mean, we saw the mix of horror and music with one of the panels we went to, Matt, and horror in this and horror in that, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's a having to explain it to people is always fun. To people, like, what are you reading, and so on and so forth. Especially when I'm reading like a Chuck Tingle book, that's even more fun to try to explain to people. I had my aardvark book club book thing came in from Lucky Day, and had the special edition with the foil. I don't know if you guys saw that one. I don't know if it's one of your
Yeah.
ones you guys got. The book came in obliterated. Like some postal delivery driver like drove over it. They had something against
Sure.
Chuck Tingle, I guess. I don't know. So I emailed Aardvark and I was like, hey, they're like, no problem. We'll send you a new one. But the book was read, like the whole corner was smashed in, but it was like it was legible, like you could read it. And so I was like, I don't want it because I want the collectability of it. But a buddy of mine, I'm like, do you want this book? And I was trying to explain to him who Chuck Tingle was, who had no idea who Chuck Tingle was. And I'm like, don't Amazon search him, please, because you will not read this book. And it's not the same, I promise you. And he read the book and he's like, that was phenomenal. I was like, it was a great book. But like, it's so funny. Like, some of the other titles you might be just a little bit put off just because of how weird they are, not because of what the subject matter or anything like that. It's just the names of them, the covers, things like that are just kind of obscure. And it was just kind of trying to explain it to someone. They're all like, I'm going to book club tonight. Oh, what'd you read? It's a horror book. Oh, never mind. I'm like,
Yeah.
God damn it! Like, no, it's a really cool place to be. But speaking of favorite, we were talking about the community and things like that and so on. But this is the time of year. We're getting the time of year of favorites of the year, compiling the list and so on. So, which can be really hard, honestly. We talk about what's your favorite horror book. You're like, well, God damn it! There's not really I do have a favorite, but like it's really like a favorite five that like kind of rotate and talk, and it depends on what it is. Like my favorite book of all time in the horror genre is Clown in the Cornfield, which to people, some people are like, it's young adult horror. It's one of Adam Caesar's better books. Uh, but there's also, I love Adam Caesar. I don't know if either one of you have ever met Adam. Adam is a amazing human being who loves horror as a whole, movies, music, books, comics, and so that gives that book a little bit more oomph to me. I don't know if you ever read a book where you like when you met the author and the author was so amazing, the book got a little 10% jump in how much you like the book. But yeah, so there's that. But really, let's be honest, Salem's Lot is probably my favorite book, if that makes any sense, because it's got more oomph behind it, and history to it, and so on and so forth. But do you guys, either one of you, have that one or two favorite books that you want to share that is all time favorites for you? Anna, you're going
Again,
first as you
oh
pushed Matt in
crap.
last way.
Okay, I was about to say Matt.
Mhm.
Damn it. Okay. I mean, everybody I think who's ever talked to me knows that I don't shut up about Rachel Harrison's work. I mean, you could pick any of her books, but Such Sharp Teeth is like the horror book that met me where I was at, shook my hand and said, "Hey, let's go."
Let's do this. Yeah.
So that one's always gonna be very, very special to me no matter what. And then like with every book that she puts out, it's just getting better. So this year, Play Nice is
This
just
is
like
awesome.
absolutely doing it for me, for everybody. I mean, she's having so much success with it, and I will plug it endlessly. Beyond that, like CJ Lee, another one, American Rapture, when that came out last year, just like rocked my socks off. Like had me, I don't think I've ever had such an emotional reaction to a book to where I was just like bereft for
Well, I
like
mean,
a
you went
few
to Catholic
days.
school too, so that
Yeah,
just
exactly. There was multiple layers to which that book hit. And but it's just so crazy whenever like you read something from somebody else that like CJ is living out in California, at the time, and I'm over here in Louisiana, and somehow there's this shared
Mhm.
DNA of like, holy shit, like we all went through this at some point. So those are the ones that stick out. And then like same thing with Liz Karen and everything that she
Liz
writes.
Karen's awesome.
She's just, she's
We
just
need more
there.
Liz Karen. We need more
Yeah.
Liz Karen. Like,
I
come on, let's go.
I could not agree
I
more.
hate putting pressure on people like that, but I'm like, you can't release amazing book after amazing book, like the two of the night and night was a Night's Edge and
Yeah, First
First
Light.
Light.
Yeah.
Like, you can't release those two and just not release it. I'm sorry that you can have a book that's kind of mediocre and be like, okay, I'm done for a while. But no, when you have two excellent books come out, then
Yeah.
you're like, I'm all set for a little bit. No, I know she had a baby, and there's a bunch of other stuff that's going on too. But like, Matt and I actually, I think Matt's going. This episode will already be out, or will be out after we've gone. But we're gonna see CJ in New Hampshire, right? Are you
Oh yeah,
going to
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yep.
CJ and Clay McLeod Chapman will be there too, which Clay is a phenomenal person as
Oh
well.
yeah.
But Mayfly is one of my favorite books of all time too. So there's the CJ lead on that as well. And the other one that I had on there was Rotters by Dano Kraus. It's again
Yeah.
another young adult horror, but it was one of those ones. There's an older Dano Kraus book that again got me kind of started in the industry of reading horror books. But Matt, what do you got going on over there?
Yeah, I mean, my all-time favorite's It, by Stephen King. But
That's your
as
all-time
far
one, two,
as,
three, and four because it's about as long as four books. So
yeah, for real, like you could just that and The Stand that can keep
yeah.
you busy for like a whole summer.
You keep a
Um,
door open. You could beat a robber where they're probably breaking into your house. There's a bunch of things you could do with those books. But yeah,
as far as like more modern books that I just absolutely love, I will recommend to pretty much anyone. It's The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones.
hmm
I could recommend pretty much any of his books. And A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. That's one of my all-time favorites. That was one that I actually read I think a little bit before I joined Bookstagram,
hmm
and it just blew my mind with I was like, what horror fiction can be like this? And like it I thought about that book so much after, and I wanted to find people who had read it to talk about it. And so that's what part of what really sparked me
hmm
searching for these kind of communities to talk to people, because I was like, I just read this, I'm losing my mind. I need to talk about like the ending of this
yeah.
book.
Well, that's the problem with reading arcs in general. In my opinion, I'm always
Yeah.
like, I just like talk to them. I mean, and Anna can you talk to the creator or the writer, and you're like, I get to talk to you about it. But like now, I want to talk to more people about this, and I can because not only have to wait the pub date come out, but then you have to wait for someone to read it. So with people's TBRs and all that stuff, maybe they won't read it for months on end. I'm like, please, people, just read this book. I want to talk to you,
Yeah.
and that's what's great about your book clubs, Matt, is that you actually get a chance to read things together and talk to other people who are like minded on that stuff. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I read The Buffalo Hunter like super early before like the majority of people. I have like literally like a bound manuscript copy that because I co-run a Stephen Graham Jones book club with Tony's Horror Corner on Instagram. And we got the books early, and Tony didn't read it for a little while because he was busy with work and a couple of the other people who had it. So I was like reading this book, and I'm like, I can't talk to anyone about this. And I really, really want to talk about it. So definitely I mean, I'm super fortunate to get books early when I do, but sometimes it's like, um, yeah, and I can't talk to anyone about this until more people read it. And like King Sorrow is the same way too. I don't
I'm
know if you guys have read that or not.
I'm about 50
Yeah.
pages left, so
Oh
Oh,
shoot.
I'll probably finish it tonight. I waited and waited and waited because it's daunting. I hate to say it when you're over 500 pages, 450 pages. I'm like anything over that. I'm always like, okay, I want to do this. It's probably going to be good, but it just gets pushed and pushed and pushed, and I'm like, well, I want to get a review up right on pub date. So like, let's hope to read this. And so I was able to, and then I crushed it. Obviously, I got to it. I'm like, God, I want to continue reading this book. But yeah, it's a daunting book. It's almost 900 pages. So yeah.
that
Yeah.
book is in contention for my favorite book of the year.
So there you
I
go. So
won't say I
speaking of
won't
that,
commit. I can't commit. I can't commit
yeah.
to it, but it's in contention.
So speaking of that, we want to keep this around an hour. So let's do some rapid fire kind of things in here. But if you could give some recent reads from 2025, not reads from 2025, but books that came out or are about to come out in 2025 that you have read, is there any that you would recommend? You can just rattle them off if you want. You don't have to go into why. Just explaining who they are, what book they are, and who they're by. If you want to do that, Matt, just name a couple of them. It doesn't. I have five. You can name five, but you can name as many as you want or as little as you want.
Okay, so there's some pressure here. Just to avoid saying, so there's obviously the ones that everybody's been talking about this year when the wolf comes home.
Mhm.
Like Anna said, Play Nice, which I haven't read yet. Sorry, Rachel Harrison. I will read it soon. Um,
I can kick him off the
yeah,
podcast right
all,
now, and if you want me to,
you, you
Hey,
can
no, this
revoke
is
my Rachel Harrison fan club card.
no, this is
Sorry.
fine. This
yes,
is
you're
the
good.
this
Um,
evens things out after the Patriots comments. So
Um, as far as like some books that I read this year that came out this year, C.S. Humble's Amid the Vastness of All Else saga just blew me away. I read all of them while I was on paternity leave, actually, over the summer, and it was just if you have not read any C.S. Humble, they're horror westerns, but they have so much heart, and he really does not pull back on the horror. There's some romance in there. There's like all kinds of stuff through those, but that's a series from Shortwave.
Mhm.
Where the Soul Goes by Catherine Silva is one that I just read. She's a local Maine author here. Just a awesome book. Culinary we alternate 80s dystopia kind of book, if that sounds like your kind of thing. Um, yeah, I'll let Anna. uh, Yeah, Anna, what do you
oh
got?
god. Okay, well, I have my Goodreads open in front of me, the books that I've read, and I'm about to like roll, okay? I'm gonna
Yeah,
see how many I can do, how quickly I can
let's
do.
do it.
Okay, so the film you were about to see by Haley Newland is an indie published book that I just read. I absolutely loved it. It gave me like Carrie vibes, but like in a slightly different sense. And it was short, it was sweet, it was like perfect. I loved it so much, and I really want to talk to Haley about it. Her Wicked Roots by Tanya Pell is another book that I really enjoyed, but it's like one of those books that's like so gothic and dramatic. Yeah, you're holding it up, Justin. It's so dramatic. I was just like hooked on it. Like I had to find out what was going to happen next and like what was actually going on. Broken Dolls by Ali Malignaggo. I don't read a lot of middle grade horror, but that book like did it for me for middle grade horror, and it is like so raw and talks about grief in a way that's just like so tangible. I loved it very, very much, and I think that it needs its flowers. For horror nonfiction, Scream with Me by Eleanor Johnson. If you listen to me or talk to me at all, I've been screaming about this book for like the last few weeks. It's just like it's a very easily readable nonfiction book that is not boring in the slightest because she
Mhm.
interweaves like horror movie plots with history, so it moves very quickly. Itch by Gemma Amore. I just like don't even have words. It's like so. It's an angry feminist book. So so good. Galloway's Gospel by Sam Reveline. I don't know what that dude's on, but his imagination is just wild, and I love it so much. That book is unhinged in the best way possible. The October Film Haunt. If you were into like that weird, like this might be real and this book might be cursed vibe, read that.
I'm
Summer in the
reading it
House of the
now.
yeah, Summer in the House of the Departed by Josh Roundtree. I need to read more of his stuff, but that was a like recent quick read that I had of his. Really, really love that one. Tangibly, like very like you could reach out and touch the nostalgia in that book and the grief in that book, just like absolutely superb. Fiend by Amakatsu. If you like Succession and you wish that it was more horror themed, you need to read that. Obviously, Shit Show by Chris Panettiere. I don't shut up about that book either.
Hmm.
You think it's gonna be one thing and it's something completely different in the best way possible.
Hmm.
Um, Chuck Tingle's Lucky Day, we talked about it already, but he
Yeah.
just doesn't miss. He's
Yes.
just absolutely
It's
phenomenal. And then the last one I'm going to throw out before I stop is going to be, let's see, What Hunger by Catherine Dang, which is a little bit more like speculative fiction, literary horror, I would say, than like straight up horror. But if you're into cannibalism and girlhood and coming of age, then you have to read that book. It is so freaking good. And that takes me back to like this summer. So if you need more, just message me because there's so many more.
well, that's great, and that's great. And I think it's also we're also one of the things that the idea that how different the genre is and how many different spots there are and how many different books there are from indies to tops to a big traditional publishing and all that stuff is that even my books that I'm going to tell you right now really quickly are slightly different than what you guys are talking about, but we all either have read or liked or just didn't mention. King of Sorrow didn't really make that list because I haven't finished it yet, so it's hard for me to say. I mean, it could, not that it's going to, but the last 50 pages could really suck and make it go, that was really good for 850 pages, but the last 50 pages weren't good. I'm very unlikely, but most likely it's going to be good. And honestly, I don't know if you felt this way too, Matt. It honestly made me, and maybe it's, I don't know, weirdly the impression of having Joe Hill and Keith Rosen together in that room in Bangor that one night, but it screamed like Keith vibes. Like I don't know, Joe Hill, it had Joe Hill vibes to it, but like for some reason, The King Sorrow could have been like if you were like, oh, Keith Rosen wrote this book, I'd be like, oh, I can understand that. Like it just for some reason it screamed the same style of book that Keith would write, and so that's kind of why I liked it a lot more too, because obviously I like Joe Hill a lot as well. But Bleed In, Breathe Out by Brian McCauley. A huge slasher fan. Love Final Destination. So there's just that too. And then the meditation and serene part of it as well. That juxtaposition is amazing. Shining Happy People by Clea McLeod Chapman. Young adult horror, which is, I think, up and coming. It's one of those things that I've always said that we used to get Goosebumps, and then there was like Stephen King with a few people in between. They were doing horror, but very rarely did you have someone who does adult horror who then steps down and does a young adult or middle grade horror. I say down, but I meant down in age, not down in quality. And to see someone like Clay make some pretty friggin' scary books and then tone down a little bit to make a book like Shining Happy People was awesome. We Are Always Tender with Our Dead. Eric LaRocca is writing some pretty crazy horror, and I think that like Eric's gonna be making books for a long time. It is what it is. I tell you that much right now. Anything from the Killer VHS series, but this Long Low Whistle is my favorite out of all of them so far, and I'm a big fan of the series. So just saying that is a huge thing, and it's there's a horror part of the very beginning of that book that is a real life based on real life tragedy, or you know, real life, what would likely be like real life tragedy. That I'm like, this is just the beginning, and it's a novella. So you're like, this is not much left to tell in this story, but it was amazing, and that the beginning of that book's amazing. It's by Laurel Hightower, and then I mentioned Keith Rosen. Coffin Moon was phenomenal. I've never really been into vampire stories until, I don't know, past 2 years. A lot of these vampire stories that have been coming out from different people have been phenomenal. And Keith just kind of turns it on its head and does a little thing. Yeah, see? With Buffalo Hunter shirt on. Matt is just repping there. But yeah, no, yeah. So those are some of the ones that I've read this year that I absolutely love. That were like, Widow's Peak, or Widow's Point was amazing too, by Chismars, and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of good stuff out there. But like I said, all of us had a little bit of something different, which was really kind of cool. I think that's a huge thing to say about the horror genre in whole. What I will say is that we're in good hands, right? I mean, I feel like we're gonna every week you're like, oh, what am I gonna read next? And you're always like, there's something worth reading out there for sure. Do you guys agree with that?
Oh yeah. I do have one question I want
Yeah.
to pitch to both of y'all since Matt, you did read King Sorrow already, and Justin, you're
Yeah.
almost done. So I get married in like 2 weeks, and I'm trying to pick what I'm gonna bring on the honeymoon, and that I think King Sorrow might be like my one read that I bring
Well,
because one, it's huge, but
well, I
like,
mean, are
is
you
that
checking
good?
a
Is
bag?
that
Because I mean,
good?
it is a
Yeah.
heavy book. So
Well, I have I have
okay,
an
there you go.
e-copy. But like, is that good vacation reading or no? Yes or no?
Uh, are you flying anywhere?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point.
multiple times.
Um,
Are you afraid of something being in the book that has to do with flying that might?
Look, I watched Lost like at an impressionable
Okay,
age, so I'm
okay.
already kind of cooked when it comes to that. So,
So just tell yourself it's fake. It's all you need to do is tell yourself this is not real. This is
yeah,
a fictional story.
okay.
It's hard. I don't know because
I've heard like some people say it's heavy. I heard some people say like I can't put it down. It's so freaking good. I like
it
depending on who I talk
moves.
to. Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah. I think it's
It
worth it. I mean,
moves.
it's one of those things that you also, if you have some time to do it, it's just, yeah. And I actually listen to it hybrid because I have
Oh yeah.
the eARC as well as I was able Libro FM's advanced audiobook reader.
Yeah,
And
I
so I
have
got
that
the
too,
digital
actually.
copy on October 1st. And so I kind of like do in the car and thing. And the audiobook's really good too, because it's mostly narrated by one person. But there's some cool
Okay.
sound effects and some other conversations in every once in a
Cool.
while. So if you look at the actual narrator list, there's like 15 people on it. But the truth of the matter is the number one person is actually doing like 90% of the book. But yeah, there is a section about a plane. That's why Matt was mentioning that
Yeah.
in the book.
I guess the bigger question is like, does it pair well with a pina colada? Like,
Well,
will the
maybe.
vibes
Like,
match?
yeah, like,
I don't think any horror book would, honestly. I think that we just have our own unique flavor of
yeah, I don't know.
enjoyable
It's hard to
vacation
say.
reading.
I think most people, like you mentioned, the whole idea of trying to explain it to people. Most people
Yeah.
be like, "Are you crazy? You're on your honeymoon. You should be reading like love romance stories here or there. Like, what's going on here? Why are you reading a horror movie or horror book?" Yeah, It's long. So I mean, if you're gonna be reading a lot of book and you want to finish it the whole time, and that's I guess that's the
Absolutely.
benefit to it is you want to read one book your entire honeymoon. I can understand that being it, but
That's part of the appeal of it, of like just, like I'm gonna sit down and I want to like spend time in a story. That
mhm,
feels like the kind of book like you just kind of end up losing yourself
mhm.
in.
Oh yeah.
So that's my argument
Mhm.
for doing it. The other flip side is everything else about
Yeah.
it being a horror book and a fantasy book where a lot of people die. So yeah.
Yes. Well, it's like I said, to me, I'm like, there's moments where I'm like, oh, this is definitely horror. Then there's moments like, this is just fantasy. And which is okay with me because, but it also shows after I read the book, or like I said, I'm almost done with the book, is that it shows that a lot of thought was put in it over the past 10 years. You know what I mean? Like it's been,
Mhm.
what, 9 years since
Yeah.
Joe Hill has come out with a book. And so it shows a lot of effort has gone into it. I'm excited for his 10 books in 10 years kind of promise he's made now because I want more Joe Hill, but I'm also understanding after I finish this book why and how much like I said at the very beginning, it was kind of daunting, and it was like, oh my god, do I really want to put this effort into this? And as I got like 25% in, I'm like, okay, I'm in it for this for the long haul now. I'm ready to go. Let's do this. And I like like I section off kind of time.
Hmm.
Like, oh, I'll give myself 2 weeks to read this book, and I'm like finishing it in like 7 days. And so like to me, it was
Which is
just
good.
I just kept on turning the pages and wanted to know what happens next, and so on. I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
Matt, do you agree with that?
Yeah, we don't get very many books like King Sorrow
Mm-hmm.
anymore in at least in horror fiction. I mean, there are some people out there writing like some chonkers, like Chuck
Yeah,
Wendig and
yeah.
stuff, but like the publishing industry is like shorter, like, and I love a good
Hmm.
short book, but there was just something really special about picking up King Sorrow and just getting lost in the pages.
Mm-hmm.
It gave me that same feeling I had when I read The Stand for the first time, or like those other kind of big, chunky, long books where you just really um, have great characters and just a propulsive plot. And
And,
that's King Sorrow.
And what I will say is, frustratingly, for someone who knows that I don't like to read very many long books, is that the way it's separate, way it's divided up in the book, it's also they're called books, which also
Yeah.
frustrated me because I'm like, well, why wasn't it multiple books then? What the hell are you doing to me? No, it says book, so it also gave that you accomplished something vibe. I feel like sometimes what I don't like about long books is that there's no like spot to go, oh, I've accomplished so much so far. If it's just chapter after chapter after
Mhm.
chapter, you just realize you're like, okay, when is this going to end? Even though it's really good. There was like, okay, got to end of book one. And you're like, cool, I accomplished something. This is amazing. Like there's a story to it. And then the story continues with book two and so on and so forth. I mentioned that to someone the other day when I was at my local bookstore. It was like, it'd be easy for someone to come out, for William Morrow to come out and say, this is going to be a 3 book series because we can charge $29 a book for each book that's 350 pages long and get $90 out of this entire series. Or we could charge you $29 and give you a 900-page book. Because, like, so they're not making any more money off of it being longer because this book isn't going to cost $50 on their shelf. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's
Yeah.
really good to see, like you mentioned, Matt, that there's not many people doing this in publishing. And I think Joe Hill kind of gets away with it too because his dad did it. But like, I think that there is something special about this book, and I think that I think it's going to be an instant bestseller. And so, if you want to be on that vibe and on that train, Anna, yes, I think that you should read it.
Okay. Will do. I also like for the record do get like like I when it's a big book like that, like I get scared. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
what if I get lost in the, whatever. So because I felt that way about the stand, that's why I put off reading the stand for so long. But no, we'll give it
well,
a go. We'll
it's
see.
very
We'll see what
easy. A
happens.
1,000 page book to be 200 pages in and say, this is okay, and decide that it's not worth the effort to finish the other 800 pages just DNF. Like it is easy. 200 pages out of a 300-page book, you're like, I might as well finish it, even if I don't like it or not. That's where I am at on that in the longer books.
Yeah.
Is that, or if it's a book series, if I read Clown on the Cornfield one and I didn't like it, then I wouldn't
Mhm.
read two and three, which means that you're not finishing that 900-page book because you only read the first 300 pages. So that's what I can see myself with. No, I think there's enough at the very beginning in that book that got me just entrenched about the characters that were in the book, that I really cared about what was going to happen next, and the twist that we get kind of towards the beginning of what happens, why the book is 900 pages long, is
Mhm.
enough that you'll get that first day of your honeymoon, or second day of your honeymoon. Have a first day, drink some pina coladas, do some things. Then it's into King
Then
Sorrow.
start. Yeah.
Then tell your husband, say, hey, you do your thing. I'm
Hey.
gonna read King Sorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't send
They
us
have a
any
golf.
pictures of you over in the corner. Your husband's over there doing whatever he wanted to do, and you're over there doing nothing
Oh,
but
let's be
reading.
real. Let's be real. He knows what he signed up for. I mean,
Yeah, you
there's
guys
no
haven't gotten married
mistaking.
yet, so he
Yeah.
knows that. Like, yeah, see, I got into horror books. My wife and I have been together for 7 years. I got into this after we got together, so now she's in it, and I changed. You're going into this way.
Yeah,
Matt,
no,
same way with you, right?
he's
You got
fully
into it.
aware of it. He invested in it by getting the ring. He signed
Yeah,
up
see,
for it. So should not be surprised in the slightest
I
at
mean,
all.
and it was kind of like you could have done a smaller ring and just give me some book club, bookstore,
Yeah.
gift certificates. I mean, you could have just bought me books instead. It's fine. But no, it's fun, and I think it's well worth it. I do think after you finish it, hopefully you'll come back and be like, "I had a shitty honeymoon, thanks guys." But I hope it's I
There's a
hope you like
part
it as
two of
much.
this. There's
Yes,
a part two of
exactly.
this episode, and it's gonna be my
We
big
just come on here,
review.
we just stand there, Matt and I just sit here, and Anna just berates us for what we didn't like about it. No, it's amazing, and I said this is a cool thing. And I think this won't be the last time we do this. I think this is a fun time to have conversations, and I think now that we've kind of gotten to know each other, or people who listen to the podcast or watch the podcast know a little bit about you two. We'll do this again in the future and talk about maybe a specific topic or so on and so forth. I do a comics of the year episode at the end of the year with my buddy who runs a comic book shop. Maybe that could be an annual tradition here where we do books of the year, and we come on towards the end of the year and do an episode with the two of you on that, or sometime in the middle of October, or sorry, the middle of summer, and we do books of the first half of the year or whatever it may be, or something like that. But it'd be kind of cool to do that. But Matt, what's your Instagram handle?
Yeah, it is at Matt's Books and Drams. Um, uh, that's pretty much where you can find me most of the time. I'm on Blue Sky, and I have a Substack that I haven't posted on since like February. Need to get back on that. So, yeah, come follow me. Send me a message. I have a couple book clubs that I run. Also have a Paul Tremblay book club called the Paul Bearers Club. And we are currently doing a reread of horror movie right now. And we've been kind of reading one every couple of months.
I will say that's another one. And if you've read horror movie and you want to reread it, listen to the audiobook.
Oh yeah.
The
Yeah, that's what
audiobook
I'm
for a
gonna do.
horror movie is phenomenal because it's the multiple people. So that's another thing. You have multiple people narrating it, but there's times in the movie where they're reading the script and they reread the same line over again. And Paul actually had people message him and say, "Hey, your audiobook's messed up." He goes, "No, no, no. That's what it would be like if someone was reading a script. They'd reread it. Oh, I didn't get that right. Let me try it again." And so they put that into the actual audiobook, which made the experience like nothing else. Like I'm a big audiobook and physical book reader, and there was something special about horror movies. So if you do end up joining the club or a part of that club, and you haven't read it before, try the audiobook. But like if you've read it before, try it again as a horror as the audiobook because it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And Anna, where can people find you?
Oh, I'm everywhere. On Instagram, I think I'm Anna.Rose_reads. On Blue Sky, Twitter, uh, Threads. You can find me of like the same variation. I also have the podcast, which is Anna Rose Reads the podcast, which is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Substack, and YouTube, all underneath the same name. I obviously submit reviews for you, Justin, for Capes and Tights. So if you ever want to read those, you know where to find those. Yeah, again, I'm just kind of everywhere. I'm all over the place doing whatever. But I do want to thank you, Justin, for putting this together because this has been a great time. Me and Matt have been friends for a while, but I do like that we've had like an actual structured order podcast or like a meeting
Yeah.
opportunity where we're not just like yelling at each other about books for the next like hour and 35 minutes. So
Yeah, no,
thank you
this
so
is
much
great.
for putting it
Yeah,
together.
I'm so happy. I'm so pumped we were able to do this. And again, let's do it again in the future for sure. Unless people are complaining and shit all over us for our episode here, maybe I'll do it just out of spite if they do decide to say that. So leave all your negative comments. I don't care. A comment's a comment on social media. We all know the algorithm. Doesn't matter what you say. Is a comment's good. No, I definitely appreciate you two taking your time out of your days. I know you're busy, you're getting ready for a wedding. Matt's got a kid and a wife, and I've got kids too. So this is a big thing, and obviously we got work and day jobs to do, as well as we're taking time away from reading, guys. Like we could be reading books right now, and we're talking to on a podcast. But no, we'll get you guys both back on in the future. But again, thank you so much for taking the time out to chat horror here on Horror Week for the Capes and Tights podcast. But yeah, we'll get in touch again soon. Sound good?
Sounds great. Thanks, Justin. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me on, Justin.